I still remember the weight of my house key. That little hunk of metal lived in my coat pocket for 37 years. The day my daughter Linda drove me to Meadowbrook Manor, she asked for it back. Just for safekeeping, she said. I handed it over without a second thought. That was my first screw-up. The next morning, I woke up to the stench of boiled cabbage and a voicemail from some realtor yapping about a new listing. My house. My garden. My maple tree. All of it on the market before I'd choked down my first cup of nursing home dishwater. That's when I learned betrayal doesn't come with a loud crash. It comes with a chirpy phone call and a smile that's already cashed the check. If you enjoy calm, real-life stories like this one, please subscribe to the channel and hit the bell so you never miss a new upload. Let me take you back to that house. Gary and I bought it in 1982, when Bristol was still a working-class town and folks left their back doors open. He worked at the car plant. I cleaned houses for a living. He didn't have 2 nickels to rub together, so my dad co-signed the mortgage. The place was a dump. Leaky roof. Drafty windows. But Gary saw something I didn't. He said a house is just bricks and mortar until you stuff it full of memories. So we did. I painted the kitchen buttercup yellow because Gary said it reminded him of sunrise after night shifts. He built a wooden swing on the front porch from scrap lumber. I planted honeysuckle along the fence. When Linda was born, he carried her over the doorstep and whispered in her ear that someday this house would be hers. He meant it as a promise. She heard it as a payday. Linda was a sharp kid. Too sharp, maybe. She could read before kindergarten. She talked her way out of detention in year 10. She landed a scholarship to a good university and never really looked back. I was proud of her. What mom wouldn't be proud of a daughter who climbs higher than she did? But pride and gratitude aren't the same thing. Linda visited twice a year at first. Then once. Then only on Christmas if the weather held and her calendar allowed. Gary used to sit by the front window every Sunday watching for her car. He never complained. He just stopped sitting by that window after a while. When he died of a heart attack in 2008, Linda stayed for the funeral and bolted before the sandwiches were served. I told myself she was grieving in her own way. But grief doesn't explain why she started asking about the deed 6 months later. After Gary died, the house felt cavernous, hollow. I rattled around in it like a dried pea in a tin can. But I kept it clean. I kept the garden. I paid the bills with my pension and the small life insurance payout Gary left. Money was tight, but I didn't whine. My needs were simple. A hot kettle. A good book. The sound of that maple tree scratching the bedroom window on windy nights. Linda started calling more often after Gary passed. At first, I thought she was being caring. Then I caught the pattern. The calls always circled back to money. Did I have a will? Had I thought about long-term care? What would happen to the house if I took a fall? I told her not to stress. I told her I had plenty of years left. She laughed and said, "Of course you do, Mom." But her voice had a new edge. An edge I didn't recognize until later. It was the sound of someone measuring a room for their own furniture. The weeks before she packed me off to Meadowbrook Manor were weird. Linda showed up with a binder full of paperwork. She said we needed to get things in order. Just in case. Those words again. Just in case. I signed where she pointed because she was my daughter and I trusted her. That was my third screw-up. She asked me to sign a power of attorney document. She explained it slow like I was a toddler. "It means if you get sick, I can pay your bills for you," she said. "It doesn't mean I own anything. I just help out." I signed it at the kitchen table, where Gary used to eat his eggs. Linda smiled and closed the binder and asked if I wanted tea. I said yes. I always said yes. That was my fourth screw-up. The morning of the move, Linda showed up at 7 sharp. She had a small duffel for me. Not the big suitcase. Just the one with 3 days of clothes. She said the facility would provide the rest. I asked her where my winter coat was. She said she'd bring it later. She never brought it. The drive to Meadowbrook Manor took 45 minutes. Linda played the radio. She didn't cry. She didn't hold my hand. She talked about traffic and the weather and how this was for the best. When we pulled into the lot, she killed the engine and looked at me. "This is a nice place, Mom," she said. "People here will take care of you." I looked at the brick building with its fake, cheerful blue door and its plastic daffodils. I looked at the old guy in a wheelchair smoking by the dumpster. I looked at my daughter's face, which was already planning its exit. The nurse came out with a clipboard. Linda hugged me fast and hard like I was a bag of trash she was tossing at the curb. Then she asked for the house key. "Just for safekeeping." I gave it to her. She shoved it in her pocket and walked away. I watched her car disappear. Then I let the nurse lead me inside to a room that reeked of bleach and loneliness. The next morning, I called Linda to ask about my recipe tin. The one with Gary's, Mother's shortbread recipe. Linda didn't pick up. I left a voicemail. 2 hours later, my phone pinged with a notification from a property app. I downloaded it years ago to check the house value for insurance. The notification said one word: listed. I opened the app with shaking fingers. There it was, my house. My buttercup kitchen. My garden. My maple tree, for sale. £260,000. The photos were brand new. Linda had hired some staging chick. The porch swing was gone. The honeysuckle was ripped out. In their place were beige sofas and tacky cushions and a little chalkboard sign that said "Good vibes only." I stared at the screen till my eyes burned. Then I put the phone down and walked to the window. Outside, a woman named Ethel was yelling at a television that wasn't even on. I finally understood how she felt. The first week at Meadowbrook Manor was a slow suffocation. The staff weren't mean. They were just wiped out. Too many bodies, not enough hours. My roommate was a woman named Mabel, who stole sugar packets and hid them under her mattress. She snored like a chainsaw. She also talked in her sleep. Most nights she whispered numbers: 3, 11, 19. I never asked what they meant. Some questions are better left alone. The food was beige. The showers were freezing. The television in the common room played the same stupid daytime shows on a loop. I spent hours sitting in a plastic chair by the window watching the parking lot. Nobody came to visit. Not Linda. Not my old neighbor, Mrs. Davis. Not a soul. I had a phone, but I was scared to use it. Every time I called Linda, she let it ring and ring till voicemail picked up. Then she'd text back, "Busy. Call you later." Later never came. I tried to keep busy. I joined the bingo game. I let Dolores, the unofficial queen of the home, teach me the rules. Dolores had been there 8 years. She had a tattoo of a dagger on her forearm and a voice like crushed gravel. She also had a gift for seeing through people. After my third bingo loss, she pulled me aside. "You ain't like the others," she said. "You gotta look like someone who's cooking something up." I told her I wasn't cooking anything up. She laughed. "Honey, everyone here is cooking something up. Most of them are cooking up a way to die, but you. You're cooking up a way out." I didn't answer. But she was right. I was cooking. I just didn't know the recipe yet. The second week I stopped crying. The anger had hardened into something colder. Something sharper. I started paying attention. I watched the staff schedules. I learned which doors were left unlocked after midnight. I made a list of phone numbers on the back of a bingo card. My solicitor, Margaret. Gary's old fishing buddy, Len, who worked at the county clerk's office. The local paper. I didn't have a plan yet, but I had time. Time was the only thing Meadowbrook Manor gave you for free. I called Margaret from the staff phone when nobody was looking. She sounded shocked to hear from me. "Betty," she said, "I thought you were in a care home." "I am," I said. "My daughter put me here." There was a long pause. Then Margaret asked a question that changed everything. Did she have power of attorney? I said yes. Margaret sighed. And she told me the truth. With power of attorney, Linda could sell the house. She could drain my bank account. She could do almost anything, unless I could prove undue influence. Did I have proof? I thought about the voicemail. The one Linda had left for Gary's sister Marge. The one Marge had saved and played for me months ago. I still had it on an old phone in my coat pocket. I told Margaret. She said, "Hold on to that. Don't tell a soul. Don't confront Linda yet. Wait. Gather more." I hung up and walked back to my room. Mabel was counting her sugar packets. 22. 23. 24. I sat on my bed and stared at the water stain on the ceiling. It still looked like a pistol. The third week, a new resident showed up. His name was Mr. Chen. He was a quiet little man, and he'd been a real estate agent for 40 years before his family parked him here. He didn't talk much, but he had a tablet, and he knew how to use it. I asked him to pull up the listing for my house. He found it in 30 seconds. £260,000, he said. That's low, real low. A fire sale. Your daughter wants it gone fast. I asked him why that mattered. He looked at me with sad, dark eyes. Because fast sales mean low prices, he said. She's not trying to get top dollar. She's trying to get cash before anybody asks questions. Before you ask questions. My stomach turned inside out. Linda never needed money. She had a decent job. A nice flat and bath. Her husband, Tom, was an accountant. So why the rush, mister? Chen shrugged. Maybe she has debts you don't know about. Maybe her husband has debts. Maybe she's planning something. People don't sell their mother's house for no reason. They sell because they are desperate. Or because they think they are entitled. That night I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed listening to Mabel whisper her numbers. 41. 42. 43. I thought about Linda's husband, Tom. He was a smooth talker. Too smooth. A kind of smooth that hides things. I remembered a conversation from 2 years ago. Tom had mentioned a business deal. Something about a property flip. He'd been excited. Linda had changed the subject fast. I hadn't thought much of it at the time. But now I wondered. Was my house the band-aid for a wound I didn't know existed? I got up at 2 a.m. I found Ruby, the retired legal secretary, in the common room. She was making prank calls from the staff phone because she said it kept her brain from turning to mush. I sat down next to her. I told her everything. The house, the power of attorney, the voicemail, the lowball listing price. Ruby listened without saying a word. When I finished, she put the phone down and looked at me. You need to get that voicemail to a solicitor, she said. You need to find out if your daughter has any other debts before she sells the house and ghosts you. I asked how. Ruby smiled. That's the easy part. You just ask the right people. She handed me a piece of paper with 3 names. A clerk at the land registry. A woman at the bank who owed Ruby a solid. A reporter at the Bristol Post who loved a good juicy family drama. I folded the paper and tucked it in my bra. Then I went back to bed. Mabel was still counting. 62. 63. 64. I closed my eyes and started counting my own numbers. The days until I got my home back. The 4th week I became a ghost. That was the secret. Nobody notices an old woman in a nursing home. They look right through you like you're made of glass. I used that. I started walking the halls at weird hours. I borrowed Ruby's phone to make calls when the staff were busy. I talked to Len at the county clerk's office. He confirmed what I already feared. Linda had filed paperwork to transfer the deed without my signature. She'd used the power of attorney. Len said it was legal but flimsy. If I challenged it, the court would look at timing. And the timing looked ugly. Linda had filed the papers 2 days after I moved into Meadowbrook Manor. Before I'd even unpacked my toothbrush. Len asked if I wanted to file an objection. I said not yet. First, I wanted to know why. Ruby's contact at the bank was a young woman named Priya. Priya called me back on a Tuesday afternoon. She spoke in a whisper like she was scared of being caught. Your daughter has a joint account with her husband, she said. They are overdrawn by £50,000. There's also a second mortgage on their flat. They've been using credit cards to pay off other credit cards. The house sale was supposed to fix everything. I thanked Priya and hung up. I sat very still for a long time. Then I called the reporter at the Bristol Post. Her name was Fatima. She'd written stories about nursing home neglect and pension theft. She listened to my story without interrupting. And she asked me one question. Do you want revenge, or do you want your house back? I thought about it. Revenge sounded sweet like stolen candy. But the house was sweeter. I want my house, I said. Fatima said good. Then we do this quiet. No newspaper. No public freakout. Just a lawyer and a letter and a little bit of pressure. I called Margaret again. I told her about the debts. I told her about the timing. I told her about the voicemail. Margaret said she would write a letter to Linda. A formal letter. On solicitor letterhead. It would say that I was contesting the power of attorney. It would say that the house sale was invalid without my consent. It would say that I had evidence of undue influence. And it would give Linda 7 days to pull the listing and move me back home. If she refused, Margaret would drag her to court. I asked what would happen to Linda if I won. Margaret paused. She could face legal consequences, Betty, fraud, financial abuse of a vulnerable adult. Are you ready for that? I thought about Linda as a little girl. The way she used to hold my hand crossing the street. The way she called me mama till she turned 13 and decided it was embarrassing. I thought about Gary sitting by the window, waiting for a car that never showed up. I took a breath. Yes, I said. I'm ready. Margaret mailed the letter the next morning. Linda didn't call me. She drove straight to Meadowbrook Manor. She showed up on a Saturday afternoon, looking thin and fried and furious. Her hair was greasy. Her coat was wrinkled. She asked the nurse to bring me to the visiting room. I walked in slow. I sat down across from her at a plastic table. She didn't stand up to hug me. She just stared at my face like she was looking for a crack in a dam. Why, Mom, she said. Why are you doing this to me? I looked at her. I'm not doing anything, I said. You're the one who moved me here. You're the one who listed my house. You're the one who lied to my face. Linda's eyes filled up with tears. Real tears, I think. Or close enough. I didn't have a choice, she whispered. Tom lost everything. We were going to lose the flat. The bank was going to take it. I just needed a little time. A little cash. I was going to pay you back. I laughed. Not a happy laugh. A tired one. Pay me back with what, Linda? You got nothing. You spent it all. And now you want to spend my house too. She shook her head. It was supposed to be mine anyway. Dad promised. Gary promised her a lot of things. But he never promised her my home while I was still breathing in it. I reached into my coat pocket. I pulled out the old phone. I played the voicemail. Linda's voice filled the room. The old lady's got no clue. I'm getting the house listed before she can say bingo. She'll be in the home by Christmas. It's what Dad would have wanted. Linda went pale as a ghost. She looked at the phone like it was a rattlesnake. Where did you get that, she said. Aunt Marge gave it to me, I said. Months ago. I was waiting for the right moment to use it. Linda put her head in her hands. She was crying now. Real crying. Ugly crying. The kind that comes from a place too deep for lies. I'm sorry, she said. I'm so sorry, Mom. I didn't mean for any of this. I just got scared, I nodded. I believed her. But belief and forgiveness aren't the same thing. I told her what was going to happen. She would pull the listing by Monday. She would sign the house back to me. She would pay for a live-in aid for 6 months. She would come to dinner every Sunday. And she would never sign another document in my name without reading it out loud to me twice. If she broke any of those promises, I would go to the cops. I would press charges. I would let Fatima write her article. Linda nodded. She was too wrecked to argue. Too broken. We sat in silence for a long time. Then she asked if she could hug me. I said yes. She hugged me like she was 5 years old and had just fallen off her bike. I held her and didn't let go till she stopped shaking. Linda pulled the listing on Monday. The beige sofas went away. The good vibes only sign went in a dumpster. The staging chick cried again, but that wasn't my problem. A week later, I moved back home. The honeysuckle was dead, but the roots were still alive. The porch swing was gone, but Gary's old toolbox was still in the shed. The maple tree was bare because it was February, but I could see the tiny buds waiting for spring. My live-in aid is a kind woman named Fatima. Not the reporter. A different Fatima. She makes tea the way I like it and doesn't steal my sugar packets. Linda comes for dinner every Sunday. She brings casseroles now. Real ones. She stays for 2 hours and doesn't look at her phone. We don't talk about the house. We talk about Gary. We talk about her childhood. We talk about small stuff. The weather. The garden. The way the evening light falls through the kitchen window. I don't trust her completely. Maybe I never will. But trust is like a broken hip. It can heal. It just takes time and the right care. The moral is simple. Love won't stop someone from being greedy, but it might give you a reason to let them try again. Not because they deserve it, because you deserve peace. I've got my house. I've got my maple tree. I've got my Sundays. And I've got my key. The one Linda asked for. The one I'll never hand over again.